I'm Linda Akibe, and you're welcome to the Gavel. There's been a flurry of activities in the National Assembly as heads of government agencies troop to Parliament to defend their 2021 budget. A common issue observed at some of the budget defense sessions during the week is the problem of inadequate funding of government agencies in the 2021 budget. From the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation to other government parastatals, the story was the same: the need for more funds to execute projects and pay salaries of workers. Now, the Minister of Finance attended some of these sessions and explained why funding is a huge issue in the 2021 budget. A common thread running through a majority of the budget defense sessions in the National Assembly during the week is a problem of inadequate funding of government ministries, departments and agencies in the 2021 budget. This concern took center stage during the budget defense session of the Office of the Accountant General of the Federation. Members of the committee expressed displeasure over the sum of 483.4 million naira budgeted to the agency for capital expenditure in the 2021 budget.
We are grossly underfunded. I am being honest. We are being treated like any other MDA.
If the Accountant General of the Federation that account for the revenue generation of this entire country are grossly underfunded, then what do we expect? There will be leakages.
Committee members were baffled that there exists no mechanism or system to monitor revenue generation from government agencies in real time. They also questioned the monopoly by Remitter as the sole payment platform for government revenue.
In trying to block revenue leakages in the government. And if, as at modern day of today, you don't have something on your desktop or your table that you can use to monitor the revenue as it's coming in, and we are still making proposals to have such it becomes a major issue. There are a lot of complaints about Remitter. But because you are throwing it open and you are bringing in more revenue generating agencies, that is why I want to, at least, by the time others come, maybe the challenges confronting remitters and the complaint confronting remitters can be taken care of.
The details of this salary.
The complaint of inadequate revenue was the same for the Fiscal Responsibility Commission, which says it may not be able to pay its staff salaries in the coming months.
We may not be able to pay salaries of our staff in December, although it's controlled by the Accountant General, but if the problem comes, the union will come after me. Lawmakers presented these issues to the Minister of Finance, who was also before them to defend her ministry's 2021 budget.
Every ministry, department and agency that you meet will tell you they haven't got the resources that they need. Why is it so? It is so because resources are simply short. We're trying to enforce a situation where agencies are able to manage within the resources that are limited.
The Minister of Information, Mr. Lai Mohammed, was also at the National Assembly to defend his ministry's 2021 budget. Members of the Senate Committee on Information questioned him on the nature of a project listed as completion of NTA Gashua substation ongoing, which the sum of 250 million naira was released to the ministry, but with zero execution.
This is a constituency project. It did not originate from our ministry, sir. Yes, sir. It's a constituency project, sir, of the National Assembly, sir. But I can assure you it's a constituency project that I have no doubt about. That the money was released on 24th of September, you can check, and that we have commenced procurement. Committee members also demanded an explanation from Mr. Mohammed on the sum of 19 million naira expended on international travels despite the COVID-19 pandemic. For the international travels, you notice that 43 million was budgeted, but less than 40% was spent, precisely because the COVID-19, out of 43 billion, yes sir, precisely because of the COVID-19. And before then, sir, I remember we had traveled to attend several international summits, starting from UNWTO conference in Moscow, in Spain, in the UK. We had done advocacy also in the UK along the same time. So, and
Was
but
that before the lockdown?
before the lockdown.
The registrar of the Joint Admissions and Matriculation Board, JAM, was also at the National Assembly to defend the institution's budget before the Committee on Tertiary Education. Lawmakers took turns to ask questions on the discharge of its mandate as a regulator in the education sector, as well as reasons for monetary deductions by the board for the establishment of mega-city centres across the country.
And to see that, well, as much as we don't see that you have huge amount of 11 million per annum for burial. I don't know why this is recurrent. So it stays like that. And so it's just
unfortunately, we were sighted in Wai, far away from Abuja. And some infrastructure that we now need because of our IT dependence is very costly. And that's why we must thank you that you graciously and the federal government graciously approved that we create a center within Abuja, for which we have been setting aside $2 billion in the last 3 years.
Heads of government agencies are making policy statements during the budget defense sessions in the National Assembly. INEC chairman revealed the timetable for the resumption of voter registration. The Minister of Finance answered the question on the increase or not of value-added tax, and the aviation minister announced a bailout of 5 billion naira for airlines and other businesses in the aviation sector. The Minister of Finance, Zainab Ahmed, has revealed that the federal government has no plans to increase value-added tax again in the proposed finance bill.
Invited guests.
She made the remark when she appeared before the Senate Committee on Finance to defend her ministry's 2021 budget. The federal government had increased value-added tax from 5% to 7.5%, and the implementation of a new tax regime began in 2020.
There will be no increase in VAT or any form of taxes because we see 2021 we see 2021 as a year of recovery. Not only government but companies and all businesses are struggling through 2020, and we're seeing 2021 as a year of recovery. So it's not a year in which you increase taxes.
It was predicated on
the chairman of the committee raised concerns over the fluctuations in oil prices against the projection of $40 benchmark price of crude oil in the 2021 budget.
This current budget was predicated on $40 per barrel. But as we speak, the current price of crude oil in the market is about $37, $38. What are the contingency plans we have put in place as far as we are concerned going forward?
Some of the institutions that are responsible for tracking of price of crude oil actually have crude oil price going as far as $52 per barrel. So we took the lower threshold. But unfortunately, it looks like a second wave of COVID-19 in Europe is affecting us. We're hoping that within the next week or two, we'll have clarity as to what is going to happen. If we have to adjust them, we have to step back and do further adjustment.
At a separate engagement with the Senate Committee on Local and Foreign Debt, the Minister of Finance is projecting that the country's foreign debt stock will hit 32.5 trillion naira by December 31st, 2020.
Table 7 shows the total public debt comprising external and domestic debt of the federal and the state governments and the Federal Capital Territory. It is projected that based on existing approvals to rise to 32.51 trillion by December 2020 and 38.68 trillion by December 2021.
It's a regular budget.
Meanwhile, the chairman of electoral body INEC, Professor Mahmood Yakubu, has announced the resumption of voter registration exercise, which is expected to begin in the first quarter of 2021. Professor Yakubu disclosed this during a budget defense session with the Senate Committee on INEC during the week. The commission is earmarking the sum of 1 billion naira for the exercise.
The commission has to prepare for the resumption of continuous voter registration in the first quarter of next year. The law says that we should register Nigerians continuously, all year round. until close to the election. So we are going to resume the continuous voter registration. For that reason, we have made a provision for a little over 1 billion so that we can kickstart the process for voter registration.
Professor Yakubu wants the National Assembly to approve 40 billion naira in the 2021 budget, expected to cover personnel cost, oversight, by-elections, and numerous litigations. He's also seeking approval for extra spending.
We have what is called the INEC Fund. So in 2010, the fund was established under the Act. The money has been saved since 2010. It hasn't been touched, but we believe that now is the rainy day for us to look at the fund to see how we can augment the budgetary appropriation.
The Senate Committee on Federal Character has asked State House officials to put the clinic in order and equip it to ensure that President Buhari would have no need to travel abroad for medical treatment.
When our president is sick,
the committee chairman, Senator Danjuma La, made this remark when the permanent secretary of the State House, Mr. Tijani Umar, appeared before the panel to defend its 2021 budget estimates. The State House official had presented a budget of 19.7 billion naira for 2021, out of which 1.3 billion naira was proposed for the State House clinic.
I'm highly disappointed because the hospital is not living up to standard that we can say this hospital belongs to our president of this nation. If you staffs don't see the importance of improving that hospital, that clinic, we the senators have seen the importance of that clinic. On no account should anybody in the presidency, either the family or the president himself, should feel sick. We'll start running, looking for how our president should be flight out without having an immediate attention in Nigeria. In fact, it's embarrassing.
Meanwhile, the Minister of Defense, Major General Bashir Magashi, retired, says Nigeria granted the U.S. permission to carry out the rescue of an American citizen kidnapped by bandits in Niger and taken to northern Nigeria. Speaking to journalists at the National Assembly after the ministry's budget defense session, Major General Magashi says Nigeria gave permission to the United States almost as soon as it was contacted by their government.
The United States of America contacted the Nigerian government and they were given the permission to undertake that operation. And there is nothing wrong in a friendly nation taking permission to conduct an operation which is for the mutual good of the countries.
You're welcome back to the Gavel. Let's head to the House of Representatives to look at some key budget defense sessions during the week.
2 weeks ago, members of the Senate Committee on Power had expressed concern over the non-inclusion of the Mambila Power Project in the 2021 budget. This is another budget defense meeting where the Minister of Power informed the House Committee on Power that the proposed 100 billion naira meant for the Mambila Power Project, which is expected to generate 3,050 megawatts of electricity, was removed from its 2021 budget by the Ministry of Finance. But his claims were refuted by the Minister of Finance when she appeared before the House Committee on Finance.
We monitor to make sure that the ceilings are not exceeded, but they provide the line-by-line details. So the ministers and the agencies know what their priorities are, and they're the ones to indicate. So if the Minister of Power didn't have Mambila in their submission, it is because they didn't provide it. We do not provide the programs that go into the budget for the ministries. That's their responsibility. Secondly,
so if I understand what you said,
yes,
the Minister of Power did not see Mambila as a priority, and that's why it is not included in their budget.
We can provide to you what the input that they have made.
We will appreciate
in the process of the budget, after the circular, they will submit the budget. We review, we do a budget defense process, and then they take our observations, and then they now update what they submitted. So we're not the ones that do the inputs in the budget.
There are fears that the Mambila Power Project may not see the light of day because of several issues yet to be resolved. Meanwhile, members of the committee are also worried about police reforms which have not been captured in the 2021 budget.
I'm looking at this budget. I've checked you have presented this budget before the protest. how do you go ahead, how do we go ahead with the salary enhancements? Are you going to come up with supplementary when the report of the Salaries and Wages Commission is reported and approved by the government? Are you coming up with a supplementary, or are you asking us to do the needful?
The review of the police service reforms we know is ongoing by the National Salaries and Wages Commission, and we've actually contemplated this as well. And what we're hoping is that the review will be completed quickly enough so that while the appropriation process is going on, that the revised salaries are included in the 2021 appropriation. If it's not completed, then we'll have to contemplate doing an amendment or a supplementary, but I do hope that we'll be able to push the Wages Commission to be able to complete this quickly.
The NSAS protests, which shook the nation for 2 weeks, and the wide-scale looting across the country which followed, has prompted the political class to pay close attention to youth in the country, especially concerning the unemployment rate and widespread hunger. Meanwhile, the Minister of Agriculture and Rural Development spoke on the recent looting of government warehouses during his interaction with the House Committee on Agriculture.
Our problem is not hunger per se. Our problem is the army of unemployed people with no gainful employment. The food may be there, but they have no money to buy. When this COVID pandemic came, on our own from the ministry, we proposed to the president to release 70,000 tons. Within 2 days, he gave the approval. Within that week, we contacted the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs. The following week, we launched and gave them the permission to go and take from all our stores. Okay, these pallets were distributed to states, and most of them locked them in their stores, and not knowing that the people knew that where these commodities are. Yes. So, but the people will blame the federal government, will blame the president, but actually it is not our fault. So, and I think this is something that we have to now to redress and reappraise the system of routing our assistance to the states. Obviously, we have to do that. There is no question about it.
It's been nearly 2 weeks since the National Assembly began receiving heads of MDAs to defend their 2021 budget. The National Assembly is in a race to conclude work on the 2021 budget and pass it by the end of this year. Now, with a fiscal deficit of 5.2 trillion naira and debt service of 3.12 trillion naira in the 2021 budget, there are concerns of the country's challenges in funding the budget. We had a chat with the chairman, Senate Committee on Finance, Senator Solomon Adiola, to discuss these concerns, as well as the problem of insufficient revenue collection from revenue-generating agencies.
This year's borrowing, it's about 5.28 trillion naira. And what that simply means is that 7.8 trillion is for retained revenue that will be coming in as revenue, while the borrowing is about 5.28 trillion naira, which will be sourced from both locally and internationally. And I want to say this. I want to agree that the idea of deficit, financing, and everything is not peculiar to us alone as a country. It's overall. It is global. And as I've continually said, that I think it's high time that if government says they are borrowing to do this, it's for Nigerians to ask that we have borrowed this fund. What this fund is meant for, is this what we are using it for? Money borrowed must be tied to a particular project. So that Nigerians will know that this fund we are borrowing, we are using it for Second Niger Bridge. We are using it for Mambila Power Project. We are using it for Kaduna Abuja Road. We are using it for Lagos Ibadan Express Road. We are using it for East-West Road. Then I believe we can have peace. That we can say, okay, if we are borrowing for this purpose and we are paying back for this purpose, I think that will be fine.
How can the National Assembly block these leakages from revenue-generating agencies?
Now, on the issue of the revenue-generating agencies, that is one way that we can cut down these leakages we have been seeing from all these revenue-generating agencies. They are divided into three. There are those that are partly funded from the federal budget. There are those that are fully funded. And there are those that are not funded at all. And the question is this. For those that are funded from the federal budget, how much are you contributing to the coffers of the federal government? Because these revenue generating agencies are also referred to as the independent revenue generation of the federal government. This is revenue accruing only to the federal government, not to both the state and the local government. How much are you generating? If you have generated enough that can make you to stand on your own, I think it is better for us as a government to pull you out of the government funding so that you can stand if you really want to exist and continue to do your own in a way that you can continue to function as an agency of the government. And I say this without fear of favor. Until we start going towards this direction of trying to give them cost of collection, we don't need to bring anybody into. I won't support agencies of the government. You will generate 10 billion in a year. Government will fund your personnel. Government will fund your overhead. Government will fund your capital. And the 10 billion that you so generate again will be spent by you as an agency. And at the end of financial year, you will say in accordance with the Fiscal Responsibility Act, you are to put or return back to the coffers of the government 80% of your operational surplus. That can work. It won't work. And that is why I said the first step to be taken by the executive arm of the government is to slash that, to reduce the number of agencies, so that we know the remaining ones who are truly functional and who are contributing immensely to the coffers of the government. And the method adopted by this current administration in trying to capture some agencies, initially in 2020, they came up with 10 GOEs, that is government-owned agencies. They bring them into the budget, both their assets and liability, and revenue, they bring them into the budget, and they start having a personal arrangement. That can work. These agencies have their own status that set them up as passed by the National Assembly. In 2021, they increased it to 60, additional 60 GOEs. It can equally work. I believe that we should just go for the jugular. And if that simply means that let's reduce these agencies and reduce the cost of governance by more than 60 or 30, by more than 30 or 40%. So if we do that, all these revenue generating agencies that are truly viable, that are contributing to the nation's budget and everything, we cannot separate them and give them a target. These so-called wastages you are saying, it's not about stealing government money. Wastages in overhead expenditure, wastages in unnecessary emolument, not approved by the federal government, not approved by the Wages and Salaries Commission. You just have a chief executive that can go to training once every month and 12 times in a year, and at the end of the day, a lot of millions of dollars and naira will have been siphoned through that process. That is not defensible. So all of this, I believe that is a systemic way which we need to put in place to tackle this issue of wastages in the system as it affects the revenue generating agency.
Now, this is where we call it a day on this week's edition of The Gavel. If you have any views on any of the issues discussed, please email us on thegavel@channelstv.com. Thank you for staying with us and see you again next week.